may we have to play the national anthem? Councilmember Wyche, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are fortunate to have with us Pastor Mike Young from City of Grace Church. Pastor, welcome back.
Family, as we gather here tonight, we find ourselves living in some very pivotal and purposeful times. And we recognize that while we're experiencing great prosperity in this city, we also have some challenges and some problems that we need to address and overcome. And we are keenly aware of the weight that rests upon the shoulders of this council as you make very important decisions that aren't just policies, but they ultimately impact people. So as a result, we want to invite in some divine assistance as you make these important decisions. Let us bow our heads and pray. Father, as we come before your presence tonight, we just want to thank you, God, for life, for health, for strength. We want to thank you, God, for this space and this place. I thank you for every man and every woman, Lord God, that takes time out of their lives and their day to serve on this council. Father, what we recognize through your word is you said that the powers that be, even civic government, has been chosen by you. So, Father, as they sit in these seats and as they make decisions, God, I pray that you'll fill them with great conviction and compassion for the people of Columbus. Father, we ask, Lord God, that you give them supernatural wisdom, Lord God. I pray that they'll not only represent, Lord God, a portion, but they'll represent all, Father, in the decisions that they make. Father, we pray for the city of Columbus, for its peace, for its prosperity. We pray, Lord God, not just for the now, but we pray for the next. Father, we ask, Lord God, that you would teach us to move in love, Lord God, that we would move in kindness, that we would move in collaboration and togetherness. We pray, Lord God, that from the decisions that are made tonight, that it would invoke, Lord God, not just equity, Lord God, but equality, Lord God. We pray that you would allow every resident, Lord God, to be blessed and prosper. Father, we ask all of this tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayoc, Howard Green, Remy Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans. Any person who takes any actions to obstruct or interfere with the conduct of tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting pursuant to Columbus City Code 2317.12. Any person who enters those areas of city council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with criminal trespass pursuant to Columbus City Code 2311.21.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayoc, Howard Green, Remy Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing no addition or corrections, the journal is approved. This week's communications received by the city clerk's office are listed in the agenda and will be published in the city bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read at the record?
Not at this time.
Thank you, clerk. We'll now move to announcements and resolutions. Councilmember Bankston.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Dorans. First, in my announcements, I have a couple. I just want to give a warm welcome to the Honorable Stanislaus Nyong'o, who is the Deputy Minister of State in the President's Office of Planning and Investment of the United Republic of Tanzania. And he is serving under the Minister of Finance. So I know he's here with us in council chambers, and we had a chance to visit with him. Just wanted to welcome him to Columbus. He has been traveling to discuss the availability of funds to accelerate development projects in Tanzania, and took the privilege, if you will, of coming from D.C. to here to spend some time with us in Columbus. So we just wanted to welcome him and thank him for his time. I know we had discussed many things that I think are very relevant here in our city when we think about infrastructure and growth and opportunity and how those pose both challenges and opportunities. So again, to the Honorable Deputy Minister, we again welcome you to Columbus and thank you for being here. Next, President Pro Tem Dorans and colleagues, I just wanted to, in my announcements, highlight a piece of legislation that's on tonight's agenda, Ordinance 1093-2025, that provides funding to the Urban Family Development Center to support the expansion of its Dads-to-Be and the Day One Dads campaign. So I want to say thank you to all of my fellow Dad Caucus folks on the dais here who came together to support that. This is really about a campaign that changes the trajectory when we talk about infant mortality, that this is not simply on women or it's not simply on healthcare systems, that men and dads play a role in the birthing process. And we're moving the goalpost, that you don't become a father at the day of birth, you become a father the day that you find out that mom is pregnant and that you have a role to play in that. So excited to lend my name and support to that campaign, and so glad that my colleagues decided to chip in as well. We wanted to also make an announcement that on this Thursday, May 1st, the Dads-to-Be organization will be launching the Day One Dads Impact Session. It is one of many so that you can learn more about this campaign and learn more about the work that Dads-to-Be does in our community. Again, that'll be this Thursday, May 1st at 6 p.m. at Ground and Grind on East Main Street. And hope to see you there, and you can check that out on my social media channels. That is all I have this evening, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Bankston. Councilmember Rosa de Padilla.
Nothing for me this evening.
Thank you. Councilmember Beatty.
Nothing from me this evening.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Dayhour.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. I've got a couple of things. Firstly, the Department of Neighborhoods is excited to announce that the grant application for the 2025 National Night Out is officially live. As many people know, National Night Out is an annual community building campaign right here in Columbus and across the nation. It's a fantastic opportunity to strengthen the bonds between neighbors and foster a greater sense of community. It provides a positive platform to connect our residents with law enforcement, fire personnel, and other community partners. By bringing community members together through these events, we empower them to work collaboratively towards reducing crime and enhancing the safety of their neighborhoods. The deadline to submit grant applications is May 15th, with the National Night Out event itself scheduled for Tuesday, August 5th. We eagerly anticipate a strong response and look forward to supporting initiatives that will make a real difference in our communities. A final list of the grant recipients and their National Night Out locations will be shared with both the Mayor's Office and City Council when it is ready. And speaking of community events, Cap City Festivals has begun for 2025. These celebrations are hosted by Columbus Rec and Parks, and they are completely free to all. The events bring free entertainment, activities, resources, and free food to community parks throughout the city. I had a blast at the opening Cap City event on Saturday at Adams Community Center, and I hope folks will join me at the next festival at Driving Park Community Center on May 30th from 4 to 8 p.m. And that's all for me, President Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Green.
Thank you so much, President Pro Tem. We do have one resolution tonight on the agenda, and as I introduce this ordinance, I'd love to welcome our partners from Columbus Realtors, Ms. Buffy Patterson, their president, Brent Swander, CEO, Vincent Coleman, our government affairs director, and anyone else from the cohort of the Realtors team that are here tonight. This ordinance we have is Ordinance 0090X-2025 to recognize and celebrate April as Fair Housing Month. month in Columbus. The Federal Fair Housing Act was signed into law on April 11th, 1968. Its purpose was simple but powerful: to end racial segregation and housing discrimination in the United States. Our state, Ohio, was actually ahead of the federal government, passing our own State Fair Housing Act in 1965, 3 years earlier. Here in Columbus, we've built on that foundation, and in addition to the protections guaranteed by federal and state law, Columbus has added local protections against housing discrimination based on gender identity, sexual orientation, and source of income. These protections matter. They ensure that no one can be denied the chance to buy a home because of their race, refused an apartment because they have children, or turned away because they have a need for an accommodation for a disability. They protect residents across every stage of life, from young families to seniors, and work to break down barriers that exclude people from the neighborhoods that they want to live in. However, these protections, as we know, are actively under threat. Recently, the Trump administration's DOGE canceled a fair housing contract with the Legal Aid Society of Southeast and Central Ohio, and this decision will impact hundreds of tenants who face housing discrimination right here in our community. And as these challenges continue to unfold, it's more important than ever to recognize and support the partners who are working every single day to defend our fair housing rights. And so today we are proud to be joined by one of those key partners, the Columbus Realtors. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and I would love to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Councilmember Green, and thank you to all of our council members here in the city this evening. My name is Buffy Patterson. I am the 2025 president of Columbus Realtors. Columbus Realtors and our members understand that as real estate professionals and our consumers, we depend on those fair housing laws and practices for our communities and our economy to thrive. Discrimination distorts housing markets, and it closes the door to the American dream of home ownership for those who are qualified. We advance our commitment to fair housing through policy advocacy, innovative programming, and legal guidance. Article 10 of the Realtor Code of Ethics states, "Realtors shall not deny equal professional services to any person for reasons of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Realtors shall not be parties to any plan or agreement to discriminate against any person or persons on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity." And this is something that we hold dear and we take very seriously. Columbus Realtors holds this to the highest standard when conducting business and in our advocacy. We promote public policies that advocate and advance broader home ownership availability, accessibility, and affordability in all communities across Central Ohio. Additionally, we prioritize efforts to narrow home ownership gaps among demographic groups and promote strong enforcement of anti-discrimination in the housing market. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. My name is Anna McCurdy, and I am the president of the Columbus Realtors Association. We're proud members of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, the oldest and largest African-American trade association in the country. As members, we proudly carry the title of Realtors. Realtors have long been the voice and the conscience for fair and equal housing opportunities. Our work isn't just in the business world, it's also rooted in civic engagement and advocacy. We believe in democracy and housing, and we've made it our mission to ensure that everyone has access to housing without limitations or restrictions. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 was a historic moment in this journey. Every April, both Realtors and Realtists honor Fair Housing Month as a way to reaffirm our commitment to providing fair, equitable, and professional service to anyone seeking a home. But our work doesn't stop with recognition, it's ongoing. We must continue to educate ourselves, advocate for our communities, and stay equipped to address the real challenges that minority home seekers still face today. We're proud to celebrate National Fair Housing Month, and we sincerely appreciate Council's recognition of the dedication and commitment of real estate professionals who work every day to uphold these values. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here tonight and for the work that you do every single day to help create a happier, healthier, safer, more flourishing environment here in Columbus. We are endlessly grateful for your partnership. We're grateful for your collaboration as we've worked to put our own policies in place here at the local level to help protect people's ability to access housing. Do any of my colleagues have any comments or questions? Councilmember Besa.
I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for all the work that you do to continue to advocate for fair housing. Thank you for always being a good partner for us. I think that we are at a time when so many of the things that we value are questioned. I think there are some things that are just not political, that are just common sense, and there are some things that are just rooted in people and the success and the humanity of people and families. And when we talk about housing, that's one of those things. And so I think I appreciate you continuing to advocate, because I know so many organizations right now are scared about what's at risk. But at the end of the day, we can't lose sight of what is really at risk, which is the safety and security of our communities and our families and the folks who are most vulnerable. And when we have so many families that are living paycheck to paycheck, so many families that don't have a nest egg, that one thing could happen and that it can throw a family off its course. And when that happens, it throws whole communities and whole cities off its course, that we cannot rest on being afraid, that we have to raise our voices, that we have to advocate more, and that we have to advocate stronger. And so I just wanted to, again, say thank you. Thank you for always showing up. Thank you for putting things on our radar. Thank you for making our policies better with the work that you do every day. Just our gratitude is immense for your continued advocacy, especially at this time.
Thank you so much. I could not agree with that more. And also, I just want to extend, I don't know that you know that I know this, Vincent, but a very happy birthday to Vincent Coleman, who is spending his birthday evening with us tonight, which shows his true dedication and public service in this space. So seeing no other comments or questions, I move for adoption.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Green, Remy Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Adopted. Thank you, Councilmember. And another happy birthday to Mr. Coleman. Councilmember Remy. Councilmember Wyche.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. Two quick announcements. One, on the very last day of Earth Month, which is Wednesday, April 30th at 3:30 in Council Chambers, we'll be hosting the first Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee hearing, where we will review proposed language on pollinator gardens and utility reselling. I encourage anyone who's interested to tune in on Council's YouTube channel or join us in person. Second, I will also be hosting my office community hours at Beechcroft Park on Wednesday, May 7th from 11:30 to 2 p.m. Walk-ins are welcome, but you can also sign up on our Eventbrite for a specific time slot. Just go online and search Wednesdays with Wyche to sign up. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councilor Wyche. I have one resolution and announcement, and as I introduce Resolution 0100X-2025, I want to invite Randy Quickle and anyone that he would like to bring up to the podium to recognize his retirement from UFCW 1015. Randy has become a friend of mine over the years and is a stalwart in the labor community here in Central Ohio. Randy started his career, it's hard to believe, back in the late 70s as a bagger at Kroger. And one of the, I think, beautiful things about the labor movement is that folks who are currently representing their members have done those jobs to start their career. and something that I think when we look at Randy's career, beginning all the way back in the late 70s working for Kroger and coming into the office in union leadership in the 90s, and then serving as president of UACW for the last 14 years. It's an incredible tribute and honor to represent 20,000 members doing all kinds of different work across this community to keep us literally running. There are so many different accomplishments that I could list off, including being a trustee for the Consolidated Pension Fund. I think you have been so integral in the Christmas Cares Union Shares event over the years that this council has had the opportunity to participate in to help provide food to needy families through St. Stephen's here in Columbus. And there's not a, I think, charitable ask that you have not tried to meet during your time in office. And one thing that I can certainly say is that 14 years in your kind of role is a lot of years to represent your members, but particularly these years in which you managed to work with your members during the COVID pandemic to make sure that folks across our community had access to necessities to keep literally our community running. And our thanks goes out to your members for having stepped up to the plate to be essential workers during that time, but also took labor leaders like you to try and make sure that you could do everything possible to make sure that those individuals were protected and could do their jobs to the best they could under incredibly challenging circumstances. So I know that 14 years in this office, you're looking forward hopefully to a good retirement with your wife who's here with you today. But from council, I want to say a deep thank you for your service to the city, to the community, and to your members. That's a lot of years to make sure that you were putting workers first over and over and over again. And I know Council President Harden texted me earlier to give you his best wishes as well, because I know you've been a long friend of his, but I know this dais up here, there's not a lot of faces you don't know and have not worked with in the past. So again, wanted to make sure we honored you and certainly your service to the members and to UFCW for all those years. With that, happy to see if you had anything you'd like to share yourself.
I have a few things. I'll keep it brief. I do really appreciate this honor. It means a lot to me. It also, as you highlight, the only thing that you kept reminding me is how old I was, but that's okay. It is what it is. I did start out as a bagger at the Kroger Company, and the one thing that I've tried to do throughout my career was remember where I came from. And with that, the partnership that we have had through all of my time, before I was the president, prior to my presidency and after the presidency, of working through several of people on this city council. And for the people that are in front of me right now, I appreciate everything that you've always done to help us when I've reached out and said, hey, can you help? It's never been a no. It's always been yes, and we can see what we can do. It's been a good relationship and partnership. Now, majority of our membership is not here in Columbus, Ohio, but we do have a great deal of people in Columbus, Ohio. And the COVID years, as everybody remembers, was quite a period of time for everybody. And I appreciate you recognizing our membership through that time, because a lot of people weren't maybe thinking about those heroes as well. So I appreciate that. That was a hard time frame for everybody, but they were the ones that kept working all the way through that. So I truly appreciate this. I truly appreciate the relationship that the local has had with this city council. And I look forward to that relationship continuing with Mike Nichols as the seated president and Jason Caseman as the secretary treasurer going forward. I appreciate this honor, and I thank you for it.
Well, thank you, Randy. You stole my next line, because any great labor leader will leave space for the next leaders to come after. And certainly, I think council is excited to work with the new president and secretary treasurer here with us tonight to certainly celebrate you. And I think, to reemphasize, I don't think anyone would ever accuse you of forgetting where you came from throughout your service to your members. And I think that is something that is to be lauded and certainly appreciated. And want to pause and see if there's any other comments from any of my colleagues. Councilmember Remy?
Well, Randy, congratulations. Exciting time and well-deserved. I wanted to just thank you and tell you how much we appreciate the partnership. Whenever we needed something and we needed the food workers, we knew we could call you and count on you. And so that goes a great deal. It's been a great mutual relationship and well-respected. And certainly, I'm looking forward to hearing some retirement stories, seeing you around, but it's been a great joy to work with you, and so appreciate you and congratulations.
I appreciate those words. Thank you.
Councilmember Bankston.
Well, I just want to echo the thanks and say congratulations, but many folks have heard me say this before. I always say that CWA is the best union, but equal to that, UFCW has to be the best as well. I think I told this story to you. My first job was also a bagger. But then you had to get bagging and go get the carts at Giant Eagle. But my second job after that was cashier and clerk at CVS on Barnett and Livingston. And that was my first entree into what it meant to be a part of a union. And as a young kid at the age of maybe, 16 or 17, you're like, what's this coming out of my paycheck? What is this? Until one day, our union rep came in and saw that I was doing something that was one dangerous and one something that I wasn't supposed to do, part of my job duties. And it's those types of moments where you see that why unions make a difference. And not only just a difference for their members, but what you all have done, especially UFCW, because your members are on the front lines in retail and some of the things that a lot of folks take for granted, some of the things that you have all fought for have benefited the entire sector. And so you should be proud of that, and I know that you will continue to fight. I also want to thank you because I think coming into this space from a political landscape, you were always someone who was willing to educate and bring along. And when we got something right, say congratulations, but when you got something wrong, you were able to pick up the phone and have an honest conversation. And so I've always appreciated that about you. And so I would say congratulations to you on your retirement. I know you still have my cell, so anytime feel free to call me. I'm sure I'll still get that phone call. But congratulations and thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you. Thank you for your words.
Well, President Quickhole, I wish you a well-deserved retirement, and your new boss right here with you.
Yes. Yes.
With that, Clerk, I move for adoption. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayall, Coward Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Adopted.
Thank you.
I do have one additional announcement. On Wednesday, May 28th, Council President and I will be hosting a second public hearing on the proposed update to the zoning map along State Route 161 in the Northland area. That hearing will take place here at Council Chambers at 5 o'clock. Residents can review the 165 parcels that this update is focused on at columbus.gov/zoning update, and that's the best place to submit public comments to the zoning team from there. That will end, the hearing will be held shortly after our public comment period, 60-day public comment period, which ends on Saturday, May 10th. This hearing will be the second of two hearings focused on this update, and we focus on reviewing public comments collected during that comment period. Residents can join here in person at City Hall, or certainly join this hearing virtually, either via the City YouTube channel or City Council's Facebook page. Again, that hearing is being held on Wednesday, May 28th at 5 o'clock p.m. Moving on, do we have any comments by other elected officials here? Seeing none, I don't think we have anyone from the judges. At this time, I move to request the following ordinance be removed from the consent portion of the agenda from the Economic Development Small and Minority Business, ordinance number 0933-2025. Are there any other requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution for the consent action portion of the agenda? Seeing none, may we now have a motion to waive reading of titles of third-day legislation by the city clerk? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayall, Coward Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Thank you. Will the clerk now read into the record ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda for first reading?
Finance and Governance Committee, ordinances 795, 935, 1050, 1055, 1056-2025. Public Service and Transportation Committee, Ordinance 1010-2025. Neighborhoods, Recreation and Parks Committee, ordinances 920 and 1014-2025. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, ordinances 831, 947, 1006, 1007, 1021, 1070-2025. Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, ordinances 1012, 1062, and 1089-2025.
Thank you, Clerk. The following ordinances appear on our agenda as consent actions. Would the clerk now please the ordinance numbers of each into the record?
Resolutions of expression 101, 102, 97, 98, and 99X-2025. Finance and Governance Committee, ordinances 842, 855, 957, 1015, 1026, 1077-2025. Economic Development, Small and Minority Business Committee, ordinances 936, 1092, and 1119-2025. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinances 945, 1003, 1061-2025. Neighborhoods, Recreation and Parks Committee, ordinances 391, 670, 674, 771, 921, 925, 974, 1017, 1064, 1066-2025. Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee, ordinances 817, 1046, 1048, 1095-2025. Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, ordinances 829, 850, 852, 853, 867, 875, 1093-2025. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, ordinances 435, 598, 931, 970, and 1023-2025. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, ordinances 348, 818, 820, 854, 866, 869, 910, 1036-2025. Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, ordinances 173, 379, 924, 965, 1054, 1075-2025. Rules and Policy Committee, we have appointments from the Mayor's Office numbered A088, 91, 92, and 93-2025.
Thank you, Clerk. May I have a motion for approval of these items designated as consent actions? Is there, Clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Mr. Bankston.
Yes, with the exception of ordinance 0852-2025, from which I'm abstaining.
Ms. Barosa de Padilla. Mr. Beatty.
Yes.
Ms. Dayall-Cower.
Yes.
Ms. Green.
Yes, with the exception of ordinance 1092-2025, from which I'm abstaining.
Mr. Remy. Mr. Wyche. President Pro Tem Dorans.
Yes. Consent agenda items passed with noted exceptions. We'll now proceed to the second reading of 30-day postpone and emergency legislation. We're going to go a little bit out of order tonight with one ordinance from the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee. Councilmember Wyche chairs that committee. Councilmember, floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem, for allowing me to go a little out of order. I'd like to ask Zahir Duvray with Trey Bell to come to the podium while I read the title. Tonight, I have 1053-2025 to authorize the Finance and Management Director to modify a contract with Trey Bell LLC for the Sustainable Columbus Community Choice Aggregation Project, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of Chapter 329 of Columbus City Codes. Trey Bell was selected to assist the city with developing, implementing, and managing the Community Choice Aggregation Program through the original request for proposals process conducted in 2020. This ordinance is extending the original contract for an additional 5-year term. Sustainable Columbus has chosen to engage this brokerage agreement for an extension given the complexities of the Community Choice Aggregation Project, the 13-year lifespan of the existing Master Service Agreement, and Trey Bell's presence throughout the MSA's terms and conditions. Zahir, thank you for being here tonight. I do have a couple of questions before moving for adoption, but I wanted to see if you had any opening remarks before I dive into the questions.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wyche. Just good evening. President Pro Tem Dorans, Chair Wyche, and members of the council. My name is Zahir Dhruv. I'm the president of Trey Bell.
My apologies on butchering your last name.
No, you're fine. Trey Bell is an independent and unbiased leader in energy procurement for government aggregations in the state of Ohio. We serve hundreds of aggregations across Ohio and have put back in the form of savings hundreds of millions of dollars over time for residents. Traybell remains committed for our residents to save money, manage their spend, and as a true champion of choice, help them make informed choices about their energy supply. Since 2020, Traybell has helped set up, implement, and administer the Clean Energy Columbus program with 3 objectives: 100% clean energy at competitive rates, encourage the production of clean energy in the state and more locally to advance Columbus's sustainable economy. And third was to find and work with a supplier who can help us attain our clean energy goals and also provide first-class service to the program. While the broader renewable development industry has faced challenges, our program has had incredible success in working to meet its objectives. Just very quickly, some of the milestones that we have achieved as a program. More than 215,000 participants now get 100% clean energy at competitive rates through our program. Through the program's community grant that's built into the rate, the city has reinvested $500,000 to low to moderate income solar co-op. We have delivered energy efficiency kits to more than 200 households or close to 200 households, and based on positive feedback, we will look to continue the program. One of our clean energy assets in Pickaway County has actually come online starting January 2025 and is now delivering clean energy to our program. It is my understanding at one point more than 300 Ohioans were working there to make that come to life. We have 2 other assets in the state that are in various stages of development. And once they come online in 2027, our projection is that more than 35% of our program's needs are going to be met by clean energy that is coming right from our state, which further advances the program towards its in-state clean energy goals. And above all, we've delivered more than $55 million back to residents in the form of lower bills and savings on their bills. So considerable progress has been made on the aggregation program. We look forward to working closely with the city and our supplier to proudly serve the program. And with that as a backdrop and context, I'd love to answer any of the questions you may have.
Thank you again for that and for the work that you're doing to kind of support our climate action plan and encouraging more folks to get renewable energy here in the state of Ohio. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the current state regulatory environment. Our aggregation program has run into a couple roadblocks just due to some of the projects that we were hoping to come online. When trying to get additional municipal scale solar projects off the ground, can you tell us how you're working to identify potential solar projects?
Yeah. No, you're right. The challenges in the renewable development space continue. I think there's not a day goes by when you don't read an article about the rise of artificial intelligence and the growth in data center load that we need to kind of build out. The tariffs pose further uncertainty, and there's leadership changes at the Federal Energy Commission Regional Commission and PJM, which is a regional transmission organization. There's a question around the status of our clean energy credits, and overall, the timeline for projects that are built to connect to the regional transmission infrastructure, those lead times have not gotten any smaller. So all of this has created a massive supply-demand imbalance, which has raised and put upward pressure on prices. So the challenges continue in some way, shape, or form. In terms of identifying the projects that are on our radar, we work closely with AEP Energy. AEP Energy uses a variety of means to identify the projects. There's a few means, directly working with developers and identifying which developers are working projects in state locally. They have strategic relationships with developers that do smaller scale projects as well, whether it comes to battery, solar. They are in and active in the wholesale marketplace themselves. We know and are privy to public information, all of the projects that are applying for permits or are receiving approvals to initiate their projects. And then we also work with brokers who only work with developers to find offtake agreements. So the net has been cast wide in terms of getting projects in to review. Now, AEP Energy is actually tracking more than a dozen projects for us on our behalf. That's our mix of local and regional clean energy projects. And we review the history of the developer, the price, the contract terms, the structure, the tenor. An important consideration for us is price. So the price of the clean energy assets that when you procure and how it turns into a rate for our aggregation, when that happens, if we, through evaluation and assessment, determine that that rate is going to make our aggregation uncompetitive and put an onerous burden on residents, we will tend to stay back on making that procurement decision and wait to evaluate another opportunity. So just in general, there's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. It's a dynamic environment. Prices are at their highest, and we are continuously working as a result in a fluid market to evaluate projects that best fit our aggregation program based on the criteria that we've set out.
Thank you for kind of going into that. I think the challenge has always been, we know energy costs are going up. But for some reason, we have a regulatory environment that is preventing renewable energy projects that can add additional capacity to the market from happening. So I'm curious, what kind of advocacy work that Trey Bell is doing to kind of push, to kind of reduce some of that regulatory burden that's creating some of these roadblocks.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Councilmember Wyche. I'll preface my answer by saying that everything that Trey Bell does, whether it's advisory or advocacy, is on behalf of its clients. So clients drive what we work on. Having said that, the form of advocacy that overarchingly takes place and Trey Bell gets involved in is what we call practical implementation of the clean energy transition. So what that means is we work with our clients to help them adopt clean energy and transition to a clean energy supply mix in their portfolio in everything that they do in a more cost-effective manner. With respect to large-scale public policy advocacy, that is not in our contract with the city. Having said that, we're very open to collaborating with the city and understanding the broader needs from an advocacy standpoint and work to identify the best means to address that.
I appreciate you saying that. And I think that is kind of some of the advocacy we have seen from external stakeholders who have pushed us really on this program, which again is very innovative for the entire country. But again, people still want to see progress. They want to hear updates. They want to see what we're actually doing to accomplish our goals. And so with that, just my last question, and I'll open it up for my colleagues, is really, in November, would you be willing to come before the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee to give us an update on the program related to any changes in the regulatory environment, project opportunities, and really just the state of clean energy market in Ohio?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. And, I'll say yes, and making sure that we will coordinate that with the city and any existing communication channels that they have so we're effective. So the answer is yes. I actually have a request for the committee is, as you mentioned, that there's many stakeholders, there's many players. To the extent there's active stakeholders or passive stakeholders, my request would be to humbly ask us all to start collaborating. As the more we start collaborating, working together, the more we'll advance our climate action plan agenda.
I love it. Collaboration, always the key to addressing the concerns that are out there. So I appreciate your willingness to come to the table, and we will do our part to ensure that those other stakeholders come to the table as well. Let me stop there, see if any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, de Alcala, Green, Remy, Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I will turn it back over to you for the regular scheduled program.
Thank you, Councilmember Wyche. And with that, we will actually move to our standard order. We'll go to the Finance and Governance Committee, which is chaired by Councilmember Bankston. Councilmember Bankston, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem President Pro Tem Dorans. First, in the Finance and Governance Committee, we have Ordinance 1072-2025 to authorize the Director of the Department of Finance and Management to enter into a contract with the Franklin County Public Defender Commission to provide legal counsel to indigent persons charged with criminal offenses to authorize the expenditure of $1,132,367 from the general fund to authorize the reimbursement of expenses prior to the issuance of this purchase order starting January 1, 2025, and to declare an emergency. Since 1976, the city has contracted with the Franklin County Public Defender's Commission to represent in the Franklin County Municipal Court all indigent persons based on poverty guidelines as determined by the United States Department of Health and Human Services charged with violations of an ordinance of the City of Columbus. Except for state-charged misdemeanors, the City of Columbus funds the municipal unit, while the Franklin County Commissioners fund the balance. Franklin County funds approximately 58% of the contract, while the City of Columbus funds 42%. Furthermore, the State of Ohio Public Defender Commission is anticipated to reimburse approximately 75% of program-related costs. Each annual contract is based on an estimate of the number of cases as well as the state reimbursement rate, and as such, an annual reconciliation is conducted by Franklin County to ensure proper cost allocations. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. May I go to the Economic Development Committee?
You may.
Thank you. First up, in Economic Development Committee, we have ordinance 0933-2025 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a not-for-profit service contract with the Columbus Urban League in an amount up to $50,000 with an option to renew for one additional year for the purpose of providing funding to the Columbus Region Minority Business Assistance Center for their resiliency focus project for minority and women and small businesses, to authorize an expenditure in an amount up to $50,000 from the 2025 Economic Development General Fund budget. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I'm actually going to move to refer this ordinance back to committee.
Clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Mr. Bangston,
Yes.
Ms. Barosa de Padilla,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty, Ms. Dale Cower, Ms. Green, Mr. Remy, Mr. White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Yes. Ordinance passed.
Thank you. And now, President Pro Tem, may I introduce one additional ordinance from the floor this evening?
You may.
Thank you. Introducing from the floor ordinance 11.
Councilmember, I'm sorry.
Yes.
That prior ordinance was referred back to committee, not passed.
Correct.
Yep. Thanks. Clerk was just letting me know. I said that one wrong. Floor is yours.
Okay. Again, introducing from the floor ordinance 1192-2025 to authorize the clerk to enter into a grant agreement with the Ohio Black Expo in support of the Ohio Black Expo Event Week, to authorize a transfer within the general fund, to authorize the expenditure of $20,000 within the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund, to authorize the expenditure of $30,000 from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. Last year's Black Expo brought in just over 10,000 attendees to the city of Columbus, and its week-long event, which culminated with the Riverfront Cultural Fest at Genoa Park. Their vendors reported approximately a little over $250,000 in sales, showcasing how powerful of an economic driver the expo is for our city, and particularly for small businesses. A few of the offerings of this year's Expo Week include the Ohio Black Expo Annual Convention with the Level Up Small Business Conference, the State of Black Ohio, networking events, empowerment sessions for youth, information on health and wellness, and much more. I am proud of council's support for this event and look forward to the economic, cultural, and community benefit the city will experience at this year's Expo. And also want to thank my partners in the administration, Director Jenkins, who I know is not here with us, but our Office of Diversity and Inclusion. I want to thank them for their partnership and support on this ordinance as well. And just want to encourage folks to get out on Memorial Day weekend and go down there to the riverfront. This is an event that is open to all families. There are some great acts this year. There will be, again, businesses of all kinds that are also welcome. And so we just really encourage folks to get out, if you're here Memorial Day weekend, down to the Expo and really support that organization. I'm sure you will have a great time. I know I will be there with my kiddos to see Common. He is coming, as well as Marsha Ambrosia, I think, is coming this year. So I'm going to be there. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I'll move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll by voice.
Mr. Bankston,
Yes.
Ms. Barosa de Padilla,
Yes.
Mr. Beatty,
Abstain.
Ms. Dayal-Cower,
Yes.
Ms. Green, Mr. Remy, Mr. Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Yes, ordinance passed. Thank you, Councilmember. The next committee come before council is Neighborhoods, Recreation and Parks Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Dayal-Cower. Councilmember, floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. I'm excited about my two ordinances this evening. First is Ordinance 0351-2025 to authorize the city clerk to enter into grant agreements with the not-for-profit entities At Home by High, Clintonville Beachwell Community Resource Center, DBA Village in the Ville, Central Community House of Columbus, DBA Village Central, and Village Connections in support of their shared mission to enable older adults and people with disabilities to live with dignity and independence, to authorize an appropriation and expenditure within the Neighborhoods Initiative Subfund, and to declare an emergency. During this year's budget process, I was successful in advocating for and securing a second year of funding for the operational support of our city's age-friendly villages. These programs utilize a member-driven, self-governing grassroots model focused on developing a mutually supportive network for successful and healthy aging in place and aging in community. The Village Movement is an alternative approach to aging where communities band together to empower older adults to age in their homes, fostering a network of support where younger residents look out for their aging neighbors. Volunteers in these programs help out by delivering groceries, giving rides to appointments, picking up prescriptions, handling lawn work and home maintenance, and hosting social gatherings for their aging neighbors. This evening, we are joined by representatives from Village in the Ville, located in Clintonville, At Home by High, serving residents from Harrison West and University District to Moynihan Park and Milo Grogan, and Village Connections in German and Marion Village. I would like to invite you all up to the podium, and we'll turn the floor over to William Jones Klein from Village in the Ville to say a few words. William, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President Pro Tem Dorans, members of council, and especially Councilmember Dayal-Cower for having us tonight. As Councilmember Dayal-Cower said, my name is William Jones Klein, and I'm the Program Director of Village in the Ville. I'm joined today by Katie Beaumont, Executive Director of At Home by High, and Donald Wiggins, Executive Director of Village Connections. We work along with 4 other villages that make up the Greater Columbus network of villages, a network formed in 2018 to support the growing number of villages in the Columbus and Greater Columbus area. Okay, so aging offers many unique opportunities and presents many unique challenges. Villages exist to harness the skills and strengths of older adults to address these challenges collectively. Through its model of neighbors helping neighbors, villages provide services, engagement, and connection to help older adults age in the homes and neighborhoods they love. The recent office closures, policy changes, and staffing cuts to the Social Security Administration, proposed cuts to Social Security itself and Medicare, and the planned dismantlement of the Administrative for Community Living have sent a clear message. Older adults, especially those with disabilities, are a burden and a drain on our society. A message the current administration is hoping will trickle down as states, counties, and cities grapple with the funding gaps these cuts will create. And so we find ourselves at an inflection point. Do we abandon our neighbors, friends, parents, grandparents for the sake of quote-unquote government efficiency and profit? We say no. Disposing of people will not solve our social problems. Any solution we come up with must be life-affirming. Older adults have learned to survive the many systemic obstacles that stand in the way of aging, and we should be building on their knowledge and experience to help us create better solutions so that we can all thrive as we age. A couple months ago, I had the privilege of attending the When Safety Nets Shrink panel at the Columbus Metropolitan Club, at which Council President Hardin said, "We will stand up when our values are not met at the state and federal government. This is the time when we must stand up and make our values even louder and even more bold on the local level." So we want to thank and commend Councilmember Dayal-Cower for standing up, for being bold, loud, in her support for the Village Movement in Columbus, and for affirming that older adults are and always will be an important part of our community. I want to thank you again for the opportunity and time to speak with you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the work that you do. And just for being that point of hope in a lot of neighborhoods where, older adults struggle. I hope that one day we'll have villages across our city, so no matter where you live, there is a community aging in place where you can find the support that you need. And also just that social interaction. We all know loneliness is an ever-increasing health epidemic, but one that's particularly prevalent amongst our aging populations. The services you all provide help those residents combat feelings of isolation, help them stay connected in their communities that they've called home for years. The things that you do, even if those things might seem like fun things, like social gatherings, improve the health and wellness of our older adults. So thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward Green, Remy Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Next, we have ordinance 977-2025 to authorize the city clerk to enter into a grant agreement with Rediscover Lockbourne in support of the Memorial Wall project and to authorize an expenditure within the Neighborhood Initiative subfunds. The village of Lockbourne is a small town with a rich history just 10 miles south of City Hall. The village is commonly known as the host community for the Lockbourne-Rickenbacker Air Force Base, which served as the last home for the Tuskegee Airmen and home to the Women Air Service Pilots and Lima Company. Lockbourne has started plans to construct an iconic memorial wall and a brand-new Veterans Park, which would honor the base and all the military heroes who served there. It will depict in both image and text the historical significance of each era of the base. This memorial will provide the community a place to celebrate its history, will attract uniformed and non-uniformed heroes and families to come and reflect on those contributions to the base, and will educate future generations on the influence the base had on the Columbus region. I'm extremely excited to support this project and so happy to join my colleagues on this initiative. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward Green, Remy Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you. That's all for me this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember. Next committee to come for council is the Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, chaired by Councilmember Green. Councilmember Green, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Council President Pro Tem. Tonight in our Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, we have two ordinances on second reading. The first one is Ordinance 0858-2025 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to execute a grant agreement with the following not-for-profit agency, the Tony R. Wells Foundation, in an amount of up to $1,453,158.80 to provide time-limited payments of unrestricted funds to individuals engaged in an economic mobility initiative that is supported by a nonprofit organization, as well as pay the administration costs for the foundation services, i.e. administrative and staffing costs, to authorize the appropriation or expenditure in an amount of up to $1,453,158.80 with the income tax set-aside, ITSA subfund, to authorize the agreements to be effective January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027, and to authorize the advancement of funds on a predetermined schedule. The Tony R. Wells Foundation will make payments for the city's economic mobility accelerator directly to individuals participating in the program and initiatives to provide each recipient, and will also be providing each recipient with a 1099. We've talked about the Economic Mobility Accelerator here before. It's a $500 cash assistance payment program for individuals that are engaged in workforce development programs here in Columbus. A portion of the grant amount will account for the administration fee for the foundation services, and in addition, the Tony R. Wells Foundation will oversee an independent evaluation of the program to provide recommendations for improving, scaling, and replicating this or like initiatives. At this time, I don't know, Deputy Director Prosser, if you had anything else you wanted to say about? Nope. Okay. Any of my colleagues have any comments or questions? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward Green, Remy Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you. As I introduce this next ordinance, I'd also love to welcome Mr. Matt Goldstein, the CEO of Besa, to the podium. Our second ordinance tonight is Ordinance 1109-2025 to authorize the city clerk to enter into a grant agreement with Besa Community, Inc. in support of its volunteer efforts in the areas of neighborhood revitalization, emergency response and relief, and nonprofit infrastructure and capacity building, to authorize an appropriation of $90,000 within the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund, to authorize the expenditure of $100,000 within the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund, and to declare an emergency. Is that right? Yes. In 2012, Columbus nonprofit Besa launched a mission to reinvent the volunteer experience, inspire service, and transform civic engagement by bringing the community together in meaningful and impactful ways. Besa is now Albanian term. That means to keep a promise. Our tax-exempt businesses are frequently understaffed and overwhelmed as needs in our community continue to grow. Likewise, there are lots of eager people in our community that are looking for tangible ways that they can give back and they can support to address the needs of the people that they see and that they love and that they know around them. Besa bridges this gap by facilitating volunteer experiences on behalf of our tax-exempt businesses, and then provides an innovative, easy-to-use platform where people can find these opportunities to engage in causes that are meaningful to them. And there are so many mutually beneficial things that come out of that. Not just are we bridging absolutely critical workforce gaps to make sure that organizations are able to stay afloat, that we're able to meet the needs of our community, that people are able to get the help when they need it, but we're also inspiring new people to get involved in service in their community. And what you have seen is that has had a very long-lasting impact on service beyond just those initial opportunities, strengthening our overall human infrastructure here in Columbus. At this time, I guess I'll turn it over to our friend Matt Goldstein to speak a little bit more about the work that Besa is doing in the community. And also, sorry to cut you off, happy Volunteer Month. April is the Volunteer Month, National Volunteer Month. So happy Volunteer Month to all those who celebrate.
I thought you were going to say happy birthday. It's not my birthday, so glad you didn't say that. President Pro Tem Dorans, Chair Green, council members, thank you for inviting me to speak. It is Global Volunteer Month. It's National Volunteer Month. Councilmember Green, I like how you said it. You didn't say not-for-profits. You said tax-exempt businesses. This month, for National Volunteer Month, Besa is supporting 90 of those tax-exempt nonprofits. We have so many volunteers showing up this month to serve. 4,500 hours of service this month. It's like 560 days, full-time 8 hours a day, days that our community, your constituents, are investing their time, their energy, their passion into this community. The pastor, when he opened up today, he talked about what's happening out there in the world. He mentioned a higher power and how we'll take anything we can get to see through this moment. I also think it takes everyday people. It takes all of us, the people in front of me and the people behind me, the people out there outside of City Hall and in our community, to show up and to serve. There's so many needs in this community, and I fully believe the greatest way to address those needs is coming together and serving. Ideologies can tear us apart. Serving with people that look like us and look nothing like us, serving this community brings people together. It is scientifically proven, and I'm so grateful for the city's continued investment in Besa. Pre-pandemic, we were doing 500 service projects a year. Last year, we did over 2,000 service projects. Last year, we served over 185 of those tax-exempt businesses. Last year, we engaged so many volunteers, so many people in this community in service. And I'm just so grateful to do this work in concert with all of you. And if I could just say one more thing, I have some staff members and board members, if you guys could just stand for 1 second. Thank you. I have members of the Besa team who have been with me from day one all the way to today's their first day of work at Besa. And these are the people that make it happen. We're a small team of about 20 people engaging thousands of people in this community. And it's because of your investment, your partnership, that we're able to show up for this community. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Matt, for the work that you do every single day, and to the team at Besa for bridging absolutely critical gaps and inspiring us all to do more and to give more of ourselves. And to continue fighting harder every single day. I think one thing that has become incredibly clear to me, despite this wild moment that we find ourselves in right now, is that the federal government might want to turn its backs on this community. The state government might want to turn its backs on this community, defund our public education, but this community is going to continue to show up every single day for one another. And we are proud, well, I'll speak for myself, but I think I'd safely speak for our colleagues up here. We are proud to be able to to continue to be a small part of this really big, important work, and to be one more person on the front lines with everyone else here in this community, just keeping on showing up for one another. Do any of my colleagues have any comments or questions? Councilmember Wyche, PD.
Thank you, Councilmember. I just want to say, I started my career as an AmeriCorps member serving our communities, and just over the weekend, they canceled over 1,000 AmeriCorps grants across the country, equaling literally millions of dollars, 30,000 some AmeriCorps members who do things like disaster relief, who run after-school programs, Meals on Wheels programs. They are many times our first response. They are people who stand in the gap, right? And so the question now is, as we look at what we could be losing, it is imperative that we are standing up for our communities and that we have people who continue to stand in the gap. And when I think about Besa and I think about the opportunities that you give for folks to show up, for folks to stand in the gap, for folks to meet the critical needs, especially at a time when every time we subtract from a community, we need to be thinking about how are we adding that back in. Right? Because that's one kid that's not going to have a safe place to go. That's one tree that's not going to get planted. That's one disaster that is not going to be met with comfort and care. And so that's why organizations like Besa are so important. And that's why this council will continue to make these sorts of investments. Because like I said at the beginning of this meeting, it is critical for us to stand up for people. And standing up for people is not a political question. It is not an economic question. It is simply the right thing to do. And so I want to thank you for continuing to do good and for giving folks in our community the opportunity to show up and do good for others as well.
Thank you very much. If I could just share what I mentioned to my team at the beginning of this year is it's going to be a consequential year. This is before we saw what was going to happen with the administration. And what I continue to say to them is, we don't have control over that. What we do have control over is how we choose to show up in this moment. And how do we do it with joy and determination and with the belief that we can bring people together, because that is what is going to see us through it. And I so appreciate how you talk about it and you continue to talk about that gap and how we lean into that gap. Thank you.
And I appreciate the way that you continue to talk about it. If I could get a pep talk from Matt Goldstein every morning, then I would be a much better person for it. Any other comments or questions for my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayall, Coward, Green, Remy, Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Congratulations on your second child, Councilmember.
Oh, yes. Council President Pro Tem, if I may please move to the Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee.
You may.
Thank you. Tonight in our Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, we have 3 ordinance on second reading. The first one is Ordinance 0964-2025. This ordinance authorizes the appropriation expenditure in an amount of up to $2 million of Home Investment Partnership Program, Home ARP funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, authorizes the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a commitment letter, loan agreement, promissory note, mortgage, and restrictive covenant with Commons at Grant TC2 Housing Limited Partnership in an amount up to $2 million for the Commons at Grant project. This project consists of 100 affordable studio apartments for individuals transitioning out of homelessness. These funds will allow Commons at Grant to renovate and maintain affordability for deeply affordable units and supportive services for tenants, including on-site medical services. 20% of the units on site are allocated specifically for extremely low-income residents at or below 30% AMI. Additionally, all units on site maintain a project-based voucher from CMHA as permanent supportive housing. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
And then our second ordinance tonight is ordinance 1063-2025 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a not-for-profit service contract with the Affordable Housing Trust for Columbus and Franklin County to facilitate the production of affordable housing and enhance home ownership opportunities in Columbus, to allow the reimbursement for expenditures prior to the issuance of the purchase order starting January 1st, 2025, to authorize the expenditure of $2,502,000 and to declare an emergency. These funds are derived from the hotel motel short-term rental excise tax known as the bed tax, which are designated for the Housing Trust for Columbus and Franklin County to facilitate the production of affordable housing and enhance home ownership opportunities in Columbus. This amount is 0.43% of the combined rate of 5.1% of the hotel motel short-term rental tax, which is allocated each year for the Housing Trust, and amounts to $2,502,000, which is the same amount as the previous year. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you so much. And then as I introduce our next ordinance, I'd love to invite Adam Rowan, CSB's Chief Compliance and Operations Officer, to the podium. This ordinance is Ordinance 1101-2025 to authorize and direct the Department of Development to enter into a grant agreement with the Community Shelter Board for the purpose of continuing the city's support for men, women, and families who are experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness in Columbus, to authorize the payment of expenses prior to the purchase order execution starting January 1st, 2025, to authorize the transfer of $10 million within the general fund, to authorize the appropriation of $1,246,566 in the income tax set-aside fund to the Department of Development Administration Division, to authorize an expenditure in the amount of $10,399,650 from the general fund and the income tax set-aside subfund, to authorize the payment for reasonable food and non-alcoholic beverages, to allow funding to be advanced to the agency on a predetermined schedule, and to declare an emergency. These funds were allocated in the city's operating budget process for the Community Shelter Board to work with our shelter partners throughout the community. When you think of these partners, they range from shelters serving families, single adults, and some of our community's most vulnerable populations. At a time when Columbus and Franklin County are facing a housing crisis and the rates of eviction and homelessness are increasing, these funds are absolutely critically important to provide safe spaces for families and to support the transition to long-term stable housing. At this time, I would love it to turn it over to our partners at CSB just to talk about the work that you're doing and the impact that it's having on our community.
Great. Good evening, Council President Pro Tem Dorans and Councilmember Green and other distinguished members of City Council. My name is Adam Rowan with the Community Shelter Board, and on behalf of CSB, we thank you for your leadership and continued investment in housing stability across our city. At CSB, we lead a coordinated, community-wide effort to ensure everyone has a place to call home. Since 1986, we've partnered with local nonprofits to deliver a full continuum of care of services from homelessness prevention to emergency shelter to permanent supportive housing. The funding before you, totaling approximately $10.4 million for 2025, will sustain and expand criminal programs, including coordinated crisis response for single adults, families, pregnant women, and veterans, street outreach to unsheltered individuals, permanent supportive housing services, safety net emergency shelters prevention and rapid rehousing, temporary housing interventions tied to violence prevention initiatives. CSB stewards these dollars and resources with strong fiscal oversight, aligning with HUD standards and maximizing impact across Columbus and Franklin County. Each investment strengthens a system designed to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. We're proud to work alongside you, and we remain deeply committed to advancing equitable access to safe stable housing for every resident in our community. Thank you again for the continued leadership and support, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you so much for joining us here tonight, Mr. Rowan. And, we started off the meeting today with a resolution recognizing Fair Housing Month, and I feel like this kind of slate of ordinances that we just passed here really kind of have doubled down on our commitment to ensuring, everyone has safe, stable housing in our community. And we're so grateful for the partnership with the Community Shelter Board and the work that you do every day to be sort of that last line of defense to support people and make sure that people who have been marginalized or have experienced hardships throughout their life, whatever pathway, has kind of led you into a position of housing instability or just overall inequities in our society and injustices that exist in our community, no matter who you are, the Community Shelter Board is there to be able to stand in that gap and provide support to our most vulnerable neighbors. And so we're so grateful for you and that service to our community. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward Green, Remy Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And President Pro Tem, that is all for me tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. Next committee to come for council is the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, which is chaired by Councilmember Remy. Councilmember Remy, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, President Pro Tem Dorans. Tonight I have 4 ordinances in public safety and criminal justice. The first is 891, 2025, to authorize the director of this, to authorize and direct the city auditor to transfer $2,504,426 within various projects of the Safety Voted Bond Fund to amend the 2024 capital improvement budget to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Codes, to authorize the finance and management director to enter into a contract with issue a purchase order to Atlantic Emergency Solutions, Inc. for the purchase of 2 Pierce Enforcer pumpers, to authorize the expenditure of $2,504,426 from the Safety Voted Bond Fund, and to declare an emergency. The apparatus from Atlantic Emergency Solutions, Inc. have been the fire division's standardized equipment for several years, as both the divisions of fire and fleet management believe these products are the best for their operations given the quality, durability, and customizability this manufacturer offers, as well as the cost-effective approach that has resulted from negotiating directly with each manufacturer during the build process. The subsequent contract established by fleet management with this manufacturer has also simplified the managing of parts service after the purchase. Deputy Director Holloran, could you speak to the waiver of competitive bidding, please?
President Pro Tem Dorans, Chair Remy, members of council, thank you. The Division of Fire, as you mentioned, has very detailed specifications that must be met on all of its apparatus. Atlantic Emergency Solutions Incorporated was the lowest quote that we received that met the Division of Fire specifications.
Just bring that mic closer to you. I'm going to call on you a few times. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward Green, Remy Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Next, 7992, 2025, to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Safety to enter into contract with Tablet Command, Inc. for licensing of specialized software and user licenses for use with the Division of Fire's Incident Command Module, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Codes, to authorize the expenditure of $44,650 from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. This service is utilized by the Division of Fire's Emergency Services Bureau to receive real-time computer-aided dispatching incident information directly at fireground and emergency response scenes. The software posts real-time incident-related comments, vehicle status, and locations directly from the emergency scene to fire dispatchers. Additionally, upon arrival to an active scene, command personnel have the ability to discern the command and operations structure and update the structure in real time, which effectuates the efficient transition of command and scene response duties. Deputy Director Holloran, could you please speak to the waiver of competitive bidding on this ordinance?
President Pro Tem Dorans, Chair Remy, members of council, Tablet Command, Inc. is the sole provider of their specialized proprietary software. The Division of Fire is in need to continue to contract with Tablet Command for licensing of this software and user licenses for use with the Division of Fire's Incident Command Module.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayal, Coward, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, I have 998, 2025, to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Safety to enter into a contract with Axon Enterprise, Inc. to continue the Division of Fire's Fire and Explosives Investigation Unit's digital evidence storage service, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of $6,362.40 from the general fund, to authorize a reimbursement of expenses incurred prior to an issuance of a purchase order, and to declare an emergency. This service is utilized by the Division of Fire's investigative unit to upload, store, and submit digital evidence from criminal investigations. The FEIU is also able to supply citizens with a link whereby citizens may upload their own footage. Deputy Director Holloran, could you speak to the waiver of competitive bidding on this ordinance?
President Pro Tem Dorans, Chair Remy, members of council, thank you. Axon Enterprises is a sole provider of the specialized digital evidence storage service. This service is utilized by the Division of Fire as well as the Division of Police. The Division of Fire is in need to continue to contract with Axon Enterprise for use of this digital storage service, and it's not seeking an alternative at this time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayal, Coward, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Finally, I have 999, 2025, to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Safety to enter into a contract with Equipment Simulations, LLC, doing business as Sims You Share, for a virtual private server and simulation builder subscription service for the Division of Fire, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of $7,995 from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. This service is utilized by the Division of Fire to design and run training simulations within a virtual replica of the City of Columbus. The service is utilized for such tasks as weekly entire division command training for emergency services, officer training, EMSO training, training for high-risk or hazardous buildings, fire prevention bureau training. Prior incident data is also utilized to identify areas with opportunity for improvement, with simulations designed to and run to assist in determining better procedures for future real-world incident responses. Deputy Director Holloran, could you speak to the competitive bidding on this one, the waiver of?
President Pro Tem Dorans, Chair Remy, members of council, thank you. Equipment Simulations, doing business as Sims You Share, is the sole provider of their proprietary software. The Division of Fire is in need to continue to contract with Equipment Simulations for use of its virtual private server and sim builder subscription service.
Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayal, Coward, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
That is all I have in Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee this evening. With your permission, can I go to Rules and Policy?
You may.
Thank you very much. And tonight in Rules and Policy, I have 1052, 2025, to amend existing Section 2505.07.6 of Chapter 2505 of the Columbus City Codes to establish and clarify the authority and responsibility for the maintenance of fire hydrants attached to city water lines but located outside the corporate limits of the City of Columbus. This ordinance establishes and clarifies the authority and responsibility for the maintenance of fire hydrants attached to city water lines but lying outside the corporate limits of the City of Columbus. In 2022, Title 25 of the Fire Prevention Code was enacted and amended to ensure alignment with the Ohio Fire Code, establish an appeal process for the review of violations, and establish a fee structure for certain permits, inspections, modifications, and rates. During that process, a portion of Title 25 that set forth the responsibilities for the maintenance of fire hydrants connected to city water lines but located outside of the City of Columbus was inadvertently removed. This ordinance amends Section 2505.07.6 to reinsert a previously existing portion of the section regarding fire hydrant maintenance. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayal, Coward, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
And that is all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. The final committee to come before council is the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, which is chaired by Councilmember Wyche. Councilmember Wyche, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem. First, I have 0616 2025 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to modify and increase the professional engineering services contract with Hill International for the Professional Construction Management Services 2020 contract, to authorize an amendment to the 2024 capital improvement budget, to authorize a transfer of cash and appropriation within the water bond fund, and to authorize an expenditure of up to $8,090,400 from the water bond fund to pay for the modification. The PCM contract supports various projects in the Division of Water Capital Program. These projects maintain and upgrade drinking water supply and treatment facilities to provide a safe and reliable water supply to the Central Ohio area. Work performed to date includes program support services, design phase construction management services, construction administration, and construction inspection services. Future phases of the contract will continue these same services. Let me pause there and see if any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayock, Howard Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, I have 0857-2025 to authorize the city attorney on behalf of the Department of Public Utilities to modify the contract for special legal counsel services with Taft Stettinius and Hollister LLP for the Division of Sewerage and Drainage and Water to waive competitive bidding provisions of Columbus City Code to authorize the expenditure of $191,000 from the Sewerage and Drainage and Water Operating Funds. Taft Stettinius and Hollister LLP is Ohio Limited Liability Partnership that provides legal services relative to issues related to the Department of Public Utilities Divisions of Sewerage and Drainage PFAS Action Plan. This ordinance authorized a third modification of the contract entered into on January 20th, 2023. The term of the contract is from the date of last execution until the need for outside legal counsel concludes, contingent on budgeted funds. If unforeseen issues or difficulties are encountered that will require additional funding, a modification would be requested. The department has requested to waive competitive bidding because Erica Spitzig is a legal expert in the field of PFAS in their relation to water. Let me stop there, see if any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayock, Howard Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, I have 0864-2025 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to enter into a construction contract with Schneider Electric for the Dublin Road Water Plant Automation Upgrade and upgrade Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, or SCADA, system hardware and software project to amend the 2024 capital improvement budget to authorize an appropriation and expenditure of up to $4,572,980 from the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account Fund for the contract. To make this ordinance contingent upon the Ohio Water Development Authority approving a loan for this project, to authorize the transfer of cash and appropriation within the Water Bond Fund, and to authorize the expenditure of up to $2,000 from the Water Bond Fund to pay for prevailing wage services for the project. The current SCADA system was installed in 2016, and by 2025, the software and hardware will have been in operation 24/7 for 9 years and likely be at the end of life. SCADA system software and hardware is typically upgraded every 5 to 7 years to maintain manufacturer support and compatibility with supporting hardware and software, and operating systems generally have vendor support for a period of about 6 years. Replacing the SCADA system will resolve vendor support issues and provide a more efficient water treatment operation. The work includes new servers and software upgrades to the SCADA system that runs the water plant, training for city staff on the new system, and upgrades to radio communication systems for remote sites operated by the plant using the system. Let me pause there, see if any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dayock, Howard Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you. And last, I have 0915-2025 to authorize the city auditor to transfer $655,925 from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund to the Water Operating Fund and $17,750 from the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund to the Power Operating Fund to reimburse those funds for one-time bill credits issued in 2025. The Department of Public Utilities offers a low-income water and sewer discount program for qualifying customers to receive a 25% discount on water and sewer consumption charges. A similar program for qualifying low-income power customers provides a 25% discount on electric consumption. In 2023 and 2024, the department offered a one-time $60 and $65 bill credit, respectively, for approved low-income water customers to offset the annual rate increases for those years. 2025 is the first year a one-time $50 credit is being offered for approved low-income power customers. These credits were made possible due to the city's receipt of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. Enough ARPA funds remain for the city to cover these one-time bill credits in 2025, with some funding remaining potentially for 2026 credits. This ordinance authorized the city auditor to transfer funds totaling the amount of the bill credits issued year to date. Let me pause there and see if any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed.
Thank you. That is all I have for my committee this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember Wyche. Seeing no further business to come before council, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
We are adjourned. We do have 4 public speak. Now come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcala, Green, Remy, Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcala, Green, Remy, Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing no additions or corrections. Whoa. What's going on there? All right. We'll now go to the zoning committee. I'm chair of that committee. All members serve on it. Before we begin tonight's zoning agenda, allow me to briefly explain our current rules pertaining to speaking for council on rezonings and variances. We only hear staff presentation of ordinance have a disapproval for recommending body, or if we have a public speaker signed up to speak against an ordinance. We permit 3 speakers on each side of an ordinance, 3 proponents, 3 opponents. We ask that those speakers limit their remarks to 3 minutes per the standard rules of City Council. All speakers on the council variance, including city staff, air commissioners, applicants, and members of the public will be sworn in before they give testimony. Representatives of the air commission are always able to speak on an ordinance. They do not need to fill out a speaker slip, but we do ask you alert city staff of your intentions to speak at this committee hearing. This evening, we do have 2 public speaker slips on legislation we have on our agenda. On the advice of the city attorney's office, will now swear in city staff. Please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, that you shall answer to pains of penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do. I do. Thank you. Please let the record show that Phil Shear from the Department of Building and Zoning Services and Christopher Lohr from the Division of Planning, Dan Bleschmidt from the Division of Traffic Management and the Department of Public Service, Deputy Director of Housing Strategies, Aaron Prosser from the Department of Development have been sworn in. First, we have ordinance 0717-2025 to rezone 5432 North Hamilton Road, being 1.55 plus acres located on 300 plus feet east of North Hamilton Road and 700 plus feet north of Thompson Road from CPD Commercial Plan Development District to AR2 Apartment Residential District. Site consists of 1 undeveloped parcel, and the proposed rezoning will allow for a 60-unit apartment building comprised entirely of affordable housing. A concurrent council variance will be considered next on our agenda this evening. Proposal is approved from city staff and the Development Commission, but a disapproval from the Northland Community Council. Due to that disapproval, we'll now hear a staff report from the city staff. First, we have Mr. Phil Shear from the Department of Building and Zoning Services. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Dorans, members of council. As stated, the 1.55 acre site consists of 1 undeveloped parcel in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The applicant requests the AR2 Apartment Residential District to allow for multi-unit residential development. Previous council variance CV 23-131 was passed on February 12, 2024 to allow a multi-unit residential development, enabling the project to seek competitive funding for an affordable housing project. This rezoning was filed as a condition of that council variance. To the north of the site are single-unit dwellings in Plain Township. To the east are single-unit dwelling in the Rural District and single-unit dwellings in the PUD 6 Planned Unit Development District. To the south is mixed commercial development in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. And to the west is a bank and gas station in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The site is within the planning area of the Northland Plan Volume 2, which recommends preserve land uses at this location, which further recommends continuing residential development on the east side of North Hamilton Road. Staff finds the proposed development consistent with the Northland Plan's recommendation and with the city's objective of creating more housing in all areas of the city. Therefore, City Department's recommendation is for approval.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from colleagues? Seeing none, we will next hear from Mr. Christopher Lohr from the Division of Planning.
Thank you, Chair Dorans, members of council. Planning is supportive of this proposal. The Northland Plan Volume 2 notes that this location is in the Preserve District, which recommends continuing the residential development pattern on the east side of Hamilton Road. The proposed multifamily development is consistent with this recommendation and is of a comparable intensity to residential uses nearby. For these reasons, staff is supportive of the use, and I'll also note that we are supportive of the council variance that is later on the agenda, as they've provided building elevations that are consistent with the plan's design guidelines and have adjusted the site plan consistent with our request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lohr. Any questions from colleagues? Seeing none, next we will hear from Mr. Dan Bleschmidt from the Division of Traffic Management.
Thank you, Chair Dorans, members of council. A traffic access study was performed for the access point to North Hamilton Road that would serve this proposed site. Based on the existing traffic volumes present and the proposed traffic volumes anticipated to be generated by this use, traffic signal will not be warranted and will not be installed at the access point to North Hamilton Road. serving the site. In regards to the proposed variance to reduce the number of required parking spaces, the proposed number of parking spaces is supportable in consideration of the anticipated parking demands for this use and the limited impact of this proposal on any adjacent public streets. Based on these considerations, the Department of Public Service has no further concerns with this application and recommends approval.
Thank you. Mr. Blishman, so our standard parking requirements outside of Title 34, so Title 33, so our old zoning code in some ways we call it, that is 1.5 spaces per unit for residential uses. What is the request here to go down to?
The request this evening is to go down to 1.2 parking spaces per unit.
Okay, so slight reduction from the 1.5. Thank you.
Correct.
Next, we have any questions from council colleagues for traffic? Seeing none, the next speaker we have come for council is Deputy Director for Housing Strategies, Ms. Erin Prosser. Ms. Prosser, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Dorans, members of council. The proposed rezoning of 5432 North Hamilton Road in the Northland neighborhood supports the Columbus housing strategy by building income-restricted and protected affordable housing in an opportunity-rich area where rents and home prices already exceed the city as a whole. Households earning below 70% of the area median income, or about $50,680 per year for an individual, are rapidly being priced out of this community, and this will provide an opportunity for families to continue to have access and be stably housed. The proposed housing meets 3 of the 4 pillars of the Columbus housing strategy. Building new affordable housing, which is subsidized and therefore income restricted and protected in communities where access is already challenging for those earning below the median income, is critical to ensuring broad access to opportunities as well as add economic diversity in the community. The census tract where this project is proposed, the median rent rose nearly 30% in the 5 years between 2018 and 2023, and it is currently 30% higher than the median rent in the city of Columbus. Home prices rose 36% in that timeline and currently exceed the city's median home price by more than 26%. The existing households in the neighborhood have a median income of $98,678 per year, 58% above the city's median household income, and nearly 100% higher than the households earning 70% or below the area median income who would be served by this new housing. In the city of Columbus, in 2023, 39.1% of the households earn less than $50,000 per year. In this census tract, it is only just shy of 20%. Finally, 35% of the rental households in this census tract currently pay more than 30% of their income on their housing. Those households are at risk for housing instability and being displaced from this community. In a high-demand area, preventing new housing does not eliminate the demand. The demand simply shifts to the existing housing stock, which drives prices up, and those at-risk families are forced to relocate to be able to afford housing. The opportunity to add new income-restricted and protected affordable housing units will be critical to allow those households to stay in the community and welcome new families to access this opportunity-rich area, regardless of what they do for work in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council colleagues for Ms. Prosser? Seeing none, I would invite the applicant's representative, Ms. Laura Komek, to the podium for a presentation. Welcome back to council.
Good evening, Laura Komek, 17 South High Street, Suite 700, Columbus, Ohio 43215. President Pro Tem Dorans and members of council, it's nice to see you all this evening. You've had a full docket of issues and not less than 5 or 6 pieces of legislation this evening that are specifically targeted to this issue. I'm always, it's an honor to be here on behalf of Homeport this evening and the important projects that they undertake on behalf of the city of Columbus. They take on the risk to address the statistics from brilliant Erin Prosser. Stated another way other than those statistics, this area needs housing as much as anywhere else. And those numbers translate to people that you see every day, your dental technician, your sheriff's deputy, your server at the restaurants that are nearby. And so this, in particular in this area, allows people who work in a community to live in a community. We say that with teachers, and we say that with a lot of young professionals, and so you already know those statistics. With regard to this project, Homeport competes with for-profit developments every day. We find sites We conduct full traffic studies. We comply with the processes and the regulations of the city, which are extensive. You've already heard from the experts on your staff this evening that this project fits into a variety of our goals as a city. There's a couple exceptions, and those are coming forward in the council variance a little bit later. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about those, and be happy to address any of the comments that come up from speakers.
Thank you. Any questions from council members from Ms. Komek at this time?
Yes, could you, and maybe this will come up later, and please let me know if it is, can you unpack the details of the project a little bit more?
Certainly.
Unit count, how deep into the AI,
Yes.
the AMI?
Thank you for the question. So this is 60 units on 1.55 acres, uniquely situated next door to a very long lot, more than 100 feet away. It fits traditional planning principles of scaling down density away from the high-intensity commercial. For purposes of OFA funding, the sweet spot is 60 units. So as you know, the two-step process for affordable housing projects, the 60 we committed to. Just anecdotally on the front end in step one, we were working with Northland. There were two concerns. One was density and the other was parking. Working with Northland, we added the fourth floor, the fourth story, so that we could generate 20% additional parking spaces. That's where the 1.2 versus the 1.5 requirement comes up. Now, within that 60 units, the breakdown is 25 one-bedroom, 28 two-bedroom, and 7 three-bedroom. Those income ranges go from 30% of AMI up to 70% of AMI. And so in terms of the rents, from $479 for that one-bedroom up to $1,785 for the three-bedroom. I could delve into a couple of those spread numbers if you'd like, but the other kind of interesting thing is the variance on parking we were able to significantly reduce. We have been in contact with CODA to talk about how we tie into that system. And we have, thanks to inquiry, proven that we have sidewalks and paths that get us directly from our site to the closest bus stop.
And are there any other requirements from the OFA financing that you'd like to share with us as to how this building would operate within the neighborhood and for the benefit of the residents?
Yeah, so like all Homeport facilities, we have staffing. We meet a variety of programming needs and education about, like the gentleman who called in earlier on the video, just about personal finance questions associated with percentages of your income that ought to be spent on housing and things of that nature. Additional requirements, other than just the 60 units, which proves a viability to the project in terms of finances. We also have inside tot lot area for the smaller families. Homeport's committed to those 3-bedroom units on a small scale to ensure that we have a full range of family sizes and incomes.
And I know that these projects are very difficult to get financed. What would be the other financing sources that you have in this particular project?
Yes, so this was a 9% competitive award. The other sources, I suppose those would be private banks, and you don't see that very often. One other thing for the purpose of educating other folks that might not specifically follow affordable housing, these aren't traditionally historically subsidized. These are directed towards working based on income. So working folks who make a particular income. It's not a traditionally subsidized project. So the way that the tax credits work is that those funds go into the equity of the building.
Any additional questions, Councilmember Bay? Thank
Not
you.
yet.
Councilmember Remy.
I just had a quick curiosity question. Is it decided ahead of time how many are at 30, 40, 50, 60% AMI?
Not with great specificity, but there's just a range, and so we fine-tuned them for those numbers for purposes of the application.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ms. Komek, so we had, original legislation that came before this body a while back with this project. I know at that time there was already a significant amount of discussions going on with both the Northland Community Council and neighbors, and obviously we are here, months after that. And I know Homeport has a reputation for attempting to work very, very well with certainly community groups and neighbors. I just wanted, if you could walk through a little bit of the changes that have been made to the project over the time from, when this was sort of first proposed to how it's before us here today.
Certainly. So there's a couple things that you mentioned there. The process itself is 2 steps. So it affords 2 complete processes through the city. The first one is slightly expedited, but not through the area commissions and groups. Second, Northland, as you know, has their own process where we provide significant information directly to folks, so they don't have to go and search for it. Northland has the criteria, and we send out the packets. We have a wonderful relationship with Northland and their leadership and a number of their members, and we have a great dialogue, actually quite open door dialogue. So we talked about how could we meet those 2 concerns. We couldn't meet the density because that's the number from OFA, but we did redesign the site plan to create those extra spaces. Throughout that process, in addition to the formality of the city process and the Northland process, we've also been contacted by a number of neighbors asking a variety of questions, and I think that we've answered those questions. We might not agree on everything, but there's absolute transparency on what it is that we're doing and how we've been going about it. The time in between the first approval and the second was spent obtaining the OFA approval, re-engineering the site, because as I mentioned earlier, we follow all of the normal regulations that the city has for developments. So re-engineering sewer and water, the traffic study, all of those items. And that brings us here till today.
Thank you, Ms. Komek. I think the last thing I want to ask, and I think sort of the through line with some of your comments that Councilmember Beatty asked, and this is certainly one of the concerns that we've heard around this project is the density with regard to the size of it on this parcel, the height of it. I think you talked about this a couple different ways, but from a funding perspective, absent that density, this is a project that is less likely to get the OFA funding, the Ohio Housing Financing Agency. So folks are not keeping up with the acronyms here. That's the state agency that provides additional funding to affordable housing projects. So, and absent those funds, which are incredibly critical towards bringing a project to fruition, it's very, very unlikely this type of project could be built. So that type of density, I'm just sort of asking out loud, is sort of almost required in order for this kind of project to move forward. Is that fair?
Yes, it is required.
Thank you. Any other questions from council members? Ms. Gomek, I'll invite you back up after we have our public speakers.
Thank you.
I did want to pause. I don't believe we have anyone here from the Northland Community Council, but if I am wrong, if you wouldn't mind throwing your hand up. All right, I don't see anyone. As I mentioned earlier, we do have 2 public speakers decided to speak on this ordinance. I did want to mention, just out of transparency, we did have at least one of those speakers decided to speak on the variance request for this. As we've mentioned every week, only folks that live within 125 feet of a property subject to a variance are legally permitted to give testimony before the body based upon the advice of the city attorney's office on whether a party is legally considered an impacted party. So my office had discussed with those individuals about how close they live to the property and encouraged them, if they did not qualify as an impacted party, to testify on this rezoning. So we have 2 different pieces of legislation here. We have the rezoning request, and then we have another piece of legislation that is that variance. So those speakers will be speaking on the rezoning here tonight and not the variance. Wanted to first invite to the podium Miss Emily Toms. Ms. Toms, welcome to council. Appreciate you being here. If you want to come up, you will have 3 minutes, but we'll try to give you enough time to make sure we get to all your comments.
All right. Good evening, council. I want to address a couple things that Laura had mentioned, and then I already prepared something that I'd like to say as well. But she kind of mentioned communication with neighbors. That hasn't really happened much, or she's kind of dismayed our concerns. Had a lot of issues and things come up that she said were not issues, particularly the piece of property behind. So I live in a single family home between a piece of property and then where they would like to build the apartments. That piece of property in between is privately owned. One day I worked from home, I looked outside, I was like, what are they doing? Like something's happening in that little piece of property. It was being bulldozed completely, like right by my fence. So the 100 feet that she's talking about, the width. I went out there, I took pictures, I took videos, I tried to talk to the guy, he didn't speak English. My husband went around to find like their manager, was able to talk to him, and he said, yeah, Homeport advised us to clear this all. So I was like, oh, I don't think that's supposed to happen. You know, that's not supposed to happen as far as what we know. So I took that information, I talked to Dave Paul at the NCC, talked to Laura, and they said, no, like that wasn't, like, we did not, like, they weren't doing that. And I kind of felt like I was made to look like a liar because I had all the like everything. So that was really concerning. And right now there's no privacy now. We see straight through to where their lot was. Before we had 100 feet of tall, mature trees, branches, brush, everything. So I originally had written up to talk about the council variances versus the rezoning, but really the things I can talk about the rezoning are just as relative. So a major thing we're talking about with like the 4-story building are our privacy concerns. So a 4-story building so close to our single-family home compromises the privacy of existing residents. Windows and balconies in these higher stories, now especially because we don't have the buffer, would provide a direct line of sight into backyards, living rooms, bedrooms, eroding our sense of personal space that single-family homes are designed to provide. This would create discomfort and a feeling of intrusion for current residents. I've talked to many of my neighbors. One more of my neighbors is going to speak next, but many of us have talked, and you know, the two of us are here on behalf of our neighbors to discuss this because everyone's concerned. We support affordable housing 100%. We understand, but the variances that they're requesting and where they want to put it, and now that we have no buffer, is really concerning to us. The impact on our property values. So the presence of a large 4-story high-density building so close to a low-density neighborhood can negatively affect property values. Prospective buyers, which I can just tell you, I'm on Zillow and I have like, oh, my 3 minutes is up?
Yeah, you can finish up. That's okay.
Oh, wow, that went super fast.
It moves very, very quickly. You can take a few minutes.
Okay, thank you. Many houses in our neighborhood are going up for sale. So with this being an opposing apartment building would deter buyers, reduce demand, and depress home values for existing residents. A large apartment building brings with it increased noise and light pollution. The constant movement of residents, guests, and delivery services could erode the quiet, peaceful atmosphere homeowners cherish. Family home neighborhoods are defined by their sense of community, uniformity, and scale. Introducing a tall, imposing structure disrupts this balance. I know it'll be discussed with the council variance, but the houses on our street in our neighborhood are 2-story. That's approximately 25 feet. They're asking for a variance of 50 feet. I think the building would be 48. That would be double of, so we're just imagining when we're sitting outside in our house, we're going to see right in our backyard, you know, a building that's double the size of ours. While we recognize the need for diverse and affordable housing options, placing a 4-story apartment building just 34 yards from established single-family homes is neither appropriate nor respectful to the existing community. I know we're talking about affordable housing and these people and future residents, which is super important, but what about us, like the current residents too? I think we all need to be considered in this. Development must be thoughtful, balanced, prioritizing the character, stability, and voices of current residents. We support smart growth and inclusivity, but not when it comes at the cost of those who already call this neighborhood home. This proposal feels less like responsible planning and more like displacement. A stronger, more inclusive community begins with truly inclusive decision-making.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues, from Ms. Toms? See none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker to come before council is Mr. Daniel Stubner. Stubner, welcome to council.
Hello, and thank you for having me. As Emily said, I'm one of the neighbors. I live probably the most immediately dead center to the east of the complex. My biggest concern is that this is a high-density, oversized building on an undersized lot. And as Emily stated, we're all for affordable housing. The problem is this is more of a money grab than to provide housing for underprivileged people or people who can't afford it. The CODA bus was mentioned. Yes, you can take a sidewalk to a bus stop, but the closer bus stop is actually in the back of a Meyer parking lot where people would have to walk through a gas station or through a parking lot to get to. So yeah, you can get to a CODA bus stop, but you got to walk further because the first one's too dangerous to get to. This is also an indication this is the end of the CODA line. So all the other services that are in the community, whether the community centers and parks, you can't take buses or anything to get there, you're excluded. They're putting it at the end of the line where if you have to take a bus because you can't have a car, you got to head out of town to go to a park. How insulting is that? This is low-income housing, but it's not providing them the services in the community that they want to put it into. And it's completely inappropriate. Another issue that I ran into, a 4-story building. So I went over to the Sunbury Fire Station, which would be the fire station that's servicing them. And I asked, hey, are you aware of this 4-story building they're talking about wanting to build there? And they're like, what? Like, we usually don't get involved with that. It's like, but we have completely different protocols for buildings that size. We don't really have any unless we go down over to the med center. We would have to even ask if we have a ladder truck or the facility, what we need to service and keep these people safe. And they also pointed out the parking. They're like, well, usually when there's low amount of parking, they cram them in really tight. We don't even know if we can get our ladder truck into the parking lot. So you have someone on a 4th story that can't be saved because you can't get a fire truck in? Is that really doing a service to people that you want to help? No, you're putting them in harm's way. You're making it harder for them to integrate with the community because they have to get out of the community to find any services. This is a completely inappropriate product for the space. It should not be changed to a residential variant or residential lot, and all the variances make it impossible to really service the people you'd be putting in this building. So I want to say thank you. I really would like to say please do not allow this to happen.
Thank you for being here. Any questions or comments from my colleagues, from Mr. Stuber? Councilmember
I don't really have a question, but I keep hearing about these people in the bus line, and these are working people. These are people like a nurse. These are people like a sanitation worker. These are people so these are not those people that need rides on buses.
Well, that's what they're saying it's there for, but that's
they
why
can
they
walk.
don't need they're saying they don't need the parking spot.
They certainly can walk if they need to go to the bus stop. And that bus stop at the back of Myers is about 100 yards or less.
No, it's a half a mile.
Oh,
It's
at
not
Myers.
100,
I'm sorry,
it's
you're
not
right.
100.
You're right. I was thinking Kroger. But what I'm saying is that there's no reason that we need to classify people if they don't have a car. They probably won't move there if the bus stops that way far away. There are people that have less income that drive cars.
Yes.
There are people that need to be in places with transportation right in front of them.
Act like
But
I'm
this isn't
insulting
one of
somebody.
them.
I am
This
not
isn't one of
insulting
them.
somebody. You're also limiting their parking spots. So if you have a kid, he's not allowed to have a car. If you're married, you're not allowed to both have cars because we're almost down to
And
one per
by the
person.
way, the fire has signed off on this, so I'm not concerned about that. So fire has to sign off on it. These people do not put things in place that they don't sign off on. They don't bend the rules. In fact, they're harder on the developers than the developers themselves because they do not want a conflict when there is an accident or something that needs to be in there.
Any other questions or
Wow,
comments?
that's very confrontational, but thank you, sir. That is not an insult to people. You have to understand, I come from low-income housing, and it is hurtful what they're doing. There are reasons why you have these ordinances in place, but you want to throw them out the window because, it's fine. These people don't matter. Throw the ordinance out the window. That is not an insult for me.
It just gets tiring hearing people come down here and talk about those people and looking out for your
I was
best
one of those
interest.
people.
I understand it. So
Then
was
this is
I.
insulting
I
that
lived
you're
in
saying
low-income
that.
housing with my mother and my brother, so I know exactly. But you know
Put
what?
on
It
the
wasn't
Gentlemen,
almost.
gentlemen, I'm not sure this is a productive discussion at this point.
I'm sure you do.
If there's another question for Mr. Stubner, I would like to allow that for my council colleagues. Councilmember
Chair, I
Rosa
do have a
DePadilla.
question, not
Yeah.
for Mr. Subner. Thank you for being here, but I do have another question.
Sure.
Free.
Okay, great. Thank you. I did want to clarify, and Mr. Stubner and Councilmember Remy sort of addressed this. Mr. Ushier, so when we talk about having staff support, I just want to make sure they put a little more meat on this bone for folks to understand. So when a project comes through all the various city departments, one of those is both the Division of Fire and the Division of Police. and the issue of whether or not a project has concerns around service, that is something that would be evaluated within that process. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. The Division of Fire is a review agency on these projects, and there is a fire suppression area labeled on the site plan that I would ask the applicant to speak further to.
And I know if you're a resident and say, hey, I went down and talked to the folks at the firehouse and they had concerns about this, totally get that. Those folks at the firehouse are not the ones that are reviewing this. That goes to our Division of Fire personnel that are housed within the Division of Building and Zoning Services. So these are firefighters, sworn officers of the city, but that is the role that they're doing in conducting those types of safety reviews. Is that a fair assessment of that process?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Komek, I want to invite you back up for any additional remarks. Councilmember, Ms. Komek, I think we got a couple of questions for council members, so I'm going to have them do that, and then if you have any additional remarks after that. Councilmember Barosa de Padilla.
So my question is just around, that we talked about the barrier that was cleared. I just want to understand what is the plan. If that area was cleared and there were mature trees that would then provide some semblance of, privacy or whatever, or barrier, what is the plan and what does that look like?
Yes, absolutely. So I had extensive email communications with Ms. Toms. I would not call her a liar, and quite the opposite. We took that notice very seriously. We sent our youngest staffer out to check that by about 9 a.m. the next morning. There were not trees taken down on somebody else's property. So were they on the property? Yes, they didn't take down the trees. So we took that very seriously. We made sure that we spoke with them. They were looking for survey pins to denote the property lines. So that's what the folks were doing on the property. There are still significant mature trees and other scrub trees and things of that nature in that 107-foot space, linear space. In addition, as part of a lot of our developments, in this in particular, on all three sides that aren't the front entrance, we have a completely opaque 6-foot board-on-board fence so as to screen and not allow folks outside of our property line. Incidentally, we did try to look into utilizing that property or acquiring that property at the request of some of the folks to provide parking there. So it was just an interesting balance, but trees remain. We're putting up a board-on-board fence. We do have windows. We do not have balconies facing the back, so that it wasn't too much of an interaction, but we do have windows because we're not building prisons after all. As far as noise and light, currently the property is zoned for a very large office building that would have a lot more traffic and would have installed that traffic light on Hamilton Road. The increase in the height, certainly perception might seem like you're doubling up, but it's actually a less than 15-foot increase on the size of the building. It's not double what the requirements are in those districts. And yes, the other, President Pro Tem, your question about how we've seen us a couple times on this project and the time in us getting back here. One of the things that the city has reintroduced is the use of the final site compliance process. It used to be called zoning clearance. We utilize that in the beginning and at the end so that we get a more detailed staff review. That staff review has been commented on by the fire department, and we tweaked our site plan to make sure that we had the proper circulation for the trucks that could make their way around, and we also have around the periphery of the property, there's certain distance regulations that we need to meet so that they can reach with the hoses. So we comply with all of those.
Councilmember Bankston.
Yeah, I think you addressed several of my questions, particularly around the buffer piece and the trees, because that's very concerning for me. But the other one is, that's 100 feet of tree buffer, but then there's also 20 feet right between your property line and where the building is?
That's correct.
So it's total, we're talking about 127,
That's
give or
right.
take.
And so perimeter yard is 25 feet, and on the eastern side that faces, we have 25 plus the 107.
Got it.
On the south and on the north, those spaces have been adjusted slightly. But again, we're in a pretty commercial context here, so our main concern was the greatest distance we could get from the residential to the east.
Got you, thank you. And then you said no balconies on that
Correct.
back, okay.
For exactly that reason, just trying to think ahead a wee bit.
Other question from council colleagues for the applicant's representative this time? Councilmember Wyche.
Not a question. I'll just note, I live in a 2-story, single-family neighborhood. My neighbors can see into my backyard. They can see everything I'm doing. I welcome them. We welcome community to say, hey, hello, I'm over here. I recognize that you're there too. I don't see that as an issue, right? I know folks feel like we have to have overall privacy where no one can see into our backyard. That just means you are separating yourself from the rest of the community. And that is not what we're trying to build here in Columbus. We want to be welcoming to all income groups. The reality is a mixed income neighborhood is better overall for everyone who is living in those communities.
I appreciate the newness of things, right? Sometimes change and newness. And so certainly that's something that we extensively think about throughout the process.
And if I could.
Councilmember.
I just, what Councilmember Wyche said, I think many folks have heard me say this in this context. I live in a single-family home as well. Behind me is literally over 900 units of apartments. My property value has gone up significantly. It has not affected my property value. My property value continues to go up. Those neighbors, I mean, now it's 3 stories, not 4, but anyway, they're wonderful people. It's great. So I just want to, for folks, I think there's this myth that, and maybe it was once upon a time, that if you had an apartment building next to you, that decreased your value. But now with us being a more denser city, a more urban city, that's not really going to the valuation of whether your property value is going to go up or down. I mean, I've seen property values that have next to freeways that continue to go up. I mean, that is, your property value is going to continue to go up because the city continues to grow, right? And so I just want to make sure that folks understand that, and we help to calm those concerns as well, because your property value, not to be taken lightly, is something that folks should be concerned about. And so I don't want to gloss over that, but I also don't want to continue this idea of fear that multifamily or any type of different housing disproportionately has a direct impact on property values. I just wanted to also raise that.
I think we're sharing our perspective as a council when we look at every part of the city and we think about how the city is growing. And I think, you know, we share our experiences, right? I grew up on the east side. I still live in the neighborhood that I grew up in, that clearly at one point when Columbus was growing, there were a number of apartment buildings that were built in, whether they were built high on Broad Street, there's I don't know, it's like 20 stories, or whether they were townhouses or, you know, 4 or 6 buildings or whatever. At some point, we use this strategy. And so I think about that because I think about when my parents moved into their house in 1970. Before that, our neighborhood was dairy farms, right, on the east side in Eastmore. And now when I think about our neighborhood, it is their first apartments were actually housing for DCSC, for military housing, that then later on became Greenbrier, that then later on we bulldozed, and now that's where Afrocentric High School is. I say all that because I think that every part of the city is going to feel the pains of growth. And certainly, I think, you know, when my parents bought their little, you know, house, they thought if it was anybody else's starter home, it's our family's forever home. And the area around us grew and it changed, and it's going to continue, and it's to grow and change. And I think that just the same way that people should have a choice about where they're living. I mean, when I look at the AMI that's listed here, it's people who work in this building and people who work for the city of Columbus that would move into these apartments. You know, when we talk about affordability, it means something very different than what affordability meant even 5 or 10 years ago in the city. And so I think we want to give people choices. And I was a single family, we were one family car up until just a few years ago because my husband biked to work every day. And so I think everybody lives so differently now. And I think that we think about our own traditions and how we live. And we don't always consider that other folks have lived differently, make different choices for themselves and for their families. And so that's something that we need to consider sitting in these seats. And so I think that every part of the city is going to look different. It's going to change. And we need to give people choices because that's what our community is essentially asking us for. And so I think, we have interactions that sometimes are more tense than we would like them to be. And I think that as council members are kind of sharing their different perspectives, I think we're doing that just so our residents and other folks know how we think and what we're thinking when we make the decisions that we're making that sometimes may not feel good because you're not ready for change or that's not what you wanted or you anticipated when you made some of the largest investments that you're making. And we also need to consider folks who are in the process of making those investments for their families and how are we also giving them choices. So I just wanted to state that as we're thinking about this, because it's certainly something that I think of every day when I sit in this chair about, where people are going to live and the folks who are coming and the choices that they need to make every day that are very difficult for their families.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other questions or comments for the applicant's representative? See none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate being here. So I appreciate the discussion and certainly want to thank members of the public that came down on this ordinance tonight. When we talk about a rezoning or a variance, it's fair to question why we're deviating from the current land use plan or why we're allowing a change from what the code requires. But the truth is, our zoning code is oftentimes incredibly outdated. Our base code goes back to the 1950s. And we think about the housing needs of Columbus and certainly what the future of the city looks like. That code from the 1950s certainly does not fit the bill for what is required of us today. Plenty of fair discussions and reasonable minds can differ regarding what appropriate density is and isn't across our community. But this project in particular, given what type of housing is being provided here, and certainly the applicant who has a sterling reputation in our community for developing responsibly and maintaining their properties well, I think is certainly something when we think about how this project will come to fruition, I think also matters. We are trying to oftentimes figure out ways to make sure that we're constructing more housing across our community while also ensuring that the future of Columbus is more equitable. And I think while no change to a neighborhood is easy, certainly I believe that this council has made it very clear repeatedly that we certainly value the input from our area commissions and civic associations and organizations like the Northland Community Council. This body has a near 95+% rate of voting in agreement with them. However, I think this is just one in which certainly reasonable minds can differ about whether or not a project is worthy of support or not. I believe that even with the concerns that have been articulated here, the applicant has worked towards making this project the best they can and believe that it's ready to move forward. So therefore, at this point, I move for passage. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston,
Passage on the rezoning.
Passage on the rezoning.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Alcower, Green, Remy, Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Ordinance passed. Next, we have ordinance number 0718-2025 to grant a variance of provisions of sections 3309.14 Height District, 3312.21A Landscaping and Screening, 3312.25 Maneuvering, 3312.49 Required Parking, and 3333.16 Fronting, 3333.23D Minimum Side Yard Permitted, and 3333.24 Rear Yard. The Columbus City Codes for property located at 5432 North Hamilton Road to allow reduced development standards for apartment building in the AR2 apartment residential district. Again, this is a concurrent variance to the rezoning we just considered. The requested council variance will allow, again, the development of a 6-unit apartment building shown on the submitted site plan. Variance to building height, landscaping, screening, maneuvering, required parking, fronting, minimum side yard, and rear yards are also included in this request. As mentioned earlier, proposal is approved from city staff, but a disapproval from the Northland Community Council. Seeing as we had this as a companion variance rezoning we just considered, and we just heard the staff report, I'm going to go ahead and move to the testimony from our applicant and any members of the public. Ms. Komek, I don't know if you have anything you want to add specifically on the variances. I'm going to have to swear you in when you get to the podium, since this is the variance. Do you swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to pains of penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do.
I do.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. These are just the fine points on the rezoning. The entire record would be included into the council variance, and I'd answer any additional questions that you might have. All of the testimony.
Great.
And the exhibits. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing none. I did want to pause and see if either one of our public speakers, who my staff let me know, are impacted parties, so I apologize for that miscommunication earlier. I don't know if Ms. Toms or Mr. Stuber would like to testify on the variances. I think we've said everything we had to say. Thank you. Seeing none, is there any additional discussion from council colleagues? Seeing none, I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bankston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Green, Remy, Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Accepted. Next, I move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Green, Remy, Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Adopted, and I move for passage. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Green, Remy, Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed. Thank you, everyone. That concludes tonight's zoning agenda. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Green, Remy, Wyche, President Pro Tem Dorans.
We stand adjourned.